And now for our main topic today here on Mastering Dungeons, we have a very special guest. We have Hannah Rose, who's been on the show before, I believe, talking about her new venture, Horizons Magazine. Hannah, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be chatting with both of you again.
Welcome back. You have
We
exciting news?
Yeah. So Horizons Magazine is a new TTRPG game magazine for 5th edition and other systems with 4 articles every quarter full of cool stuff to use in your games. We also have a op-ed every issue, which is a nerdy deep dive from the desk of many thoughts. First one is by me and my co-founder, and we have a bunch of other cool folks in the works to write about their nerdy ideas, thoughts, passions, rants, and a lot of other game designers and amazing illustrators lined up. But first, let's talk about the issue that just came out.
Well, actually, even before that, can we have you introduce yourself to the show? Like, we know you well. We've been admiring your work forever, but tell us about you and your co-founder and kind of how it led to here.
Sorry, I jumped ahead right there. So eager to get into it. But so I am a game designer and editor and sometime art director and wearer of many hats, as many of us in this industry are. I've been working in TTRPGs for about, like 6 years now, which isn't that long in the grand 50-year history of D&D, but sure feels like it's gone by fast. And I've worked with both of you in the past on Wizards of the Coast products, on DM's Guild Adept stuff back when that was a thing. I worked with Critical Role on a number of their books, including as the code lead designer and the managing editor of Tal'Dorei Campaign Setting Reborn, on also Explorer's Guide to Wildmount and Call of the Netherdeep. And I was the managing editor at MCDM Productions for a while, leading a magazine called Arcadia, which is the precursor to what we are doing now with Horizons at my publishing company, Wildmage Press.
And
where does Clara?
I want to say, you said, I've been working for 6 years. That is a 6 years that a lot of people have been working for 30 would like to have that across their 30. Like, that's an incredible. You did all that in 6 years. Wow.
Maybe that's why it feels like it's gone by so fast. It's certainly been jam-packed.
Yeah.
Sorry, Shawn.
And so no, I thought the same thing. And I was just going to say, yes, that's a career for most people, and for some people, it's just the first 6 years of their thing. So kudos on that. I wanted to ask you about Clara Daly and what your connection is with her and what she does at Horizons.
Yeah, so Clara, I met as an illustrator for Tal'Dorei Campaign Setting Reborn. So Clara is a fantastic woman and creator of many talents, which is many talents and many creative and nerdy hobbies, which is one of the things we bonded over and became friends. But we met when she was brought on to do some illustration for Tal'Dorei Reborn. We needed some item illustration, and there are a lot of fan artists out there who do amazing character art, a lot of fan artists out there who do scenes and landscapes, and we needed somebody who was really strong in illustrating stuff, in illustrating items and spot art. And that kind of thing is sometimes a little less flashy, but requires just as much skill and knowledge. And I looked at Clara's fan art and looked at her website and said, oh, she's a graphic designer. She, is doing this really cool fan art with these still lives. Like, she seems really cool. I think she'll be great for this. And we loved working with her so much that we had her do some more extra pieces of art, and I connected her with the folks on the main Critical Role streaming side, and she's had a fantastic time working with them doing key art for Critical Role Campaign 3 of the beginning setting there, the key art for Exandria Unlimited Calamity, the key art for Exandria Unlimited, or for Downfall. So she's done a bunch of art with them and worked on some things with me on Arcadia. She tries out a whole bunch of different styles as an illustrator. So she's, does painterly fantasy, she does Art Nouveau, she does travel posters, she just is always down to experiment and try new things artistically. And then we've also become friends and, like I said, bonded over having many, many hobbies. For her, that's everything from abandoned building photography to crochet, to playing games, to gardening. And I came to her earlier this year and said, hey, you've got this cool day job where she is a director of interactive strategy, does PR, web design, communications, graphic design, all of this at her cool real person day job. I said, you've got this cool real person day job. You've got a ton of hobbies. You would be interested in co-leading a magazine and founding a company with me, would you? Like, gonna ask on the off chance, but I know you're probably busy. And she said, wait, hell yeah, I would be. That sounds great. I love collaborating with you. Let's do it. And I said, wait, whoa, really? Okay, let's do it.
And then you had to do it.
Because I'd had this, idea percolating. I was at MCDM and they were moving away from 5e and moving away from regular release subscription-based content and didn't want to do Arcadia anymore. And the fans and community were really sad about that. And as a creator, I'd really enjoyed working on that and leading it. And there was a gap in the industry for something like that. And I wanted to continue on, do something Arcadia-like, continue that legacy, make it my own, be able to expand and experiment and try new things. But I didn't want to do it by myself, right? Like, sure. You guys know, you guys have been freelancers for a long time. It can be really lonely. And the endeavor of starting something new and starting a company, that, carries with it a lot of responsibility and stress. And that's just not something I wanted to do if it was just me at the helm. So I was and continue to be incredibly overjoyed and grateful that Clara came on and has been such a big part of this as co-founder, bringing her, marketing and branding knowledge, her graphic design, our logo, the Horizons title, our website, the layout, that's all her. It's a collaborative process back and forth, right? I have opinions, I weigh in, she lets me get there and fiddle with things sometimes, but that is all her skills and knowledge and hard work and time that she brings to bear with all of that. And it's just been it's been a really fantastic collaboration. It's really special to get to do this.
Yeah, having another partner that brings in slightly different skills is super key for sure. I marvel at the people that have the skills that I don't, and I'm so thankful for that because we all have
we've enjoyed learning from each other too. So, like I mentioned, I'd fallen sideways into art directing for Tal'Dorei Reborn, which is how I met Clara. But I am not an illustrator by trade and experience, and she is. So collaborating on art directing for Horizons with her has been really fun because I get to show her, okay, well, this is the process I've used, and this is how I set up art briefs, and contact the artists, and this is what I'm thinking about when I pick out an artist, and here's about the amount of time we give them, and some considerations, and then she writes some art briefs for the first time, and it's like, wow, this really does take a long time to write art briefs, and I'm like, I know, right? But then we get to look at the works in progress, the thumbs, the sketches, which is one of my favorite parts of art directing. It's just amazing to get to see that and discuss. And sometimes when I'm not sure what feedback to give, whenever I'm not sure what feedback to give, she really knows what direction or what notes we want to provide to the artist, because she has a different insight into the process than I do. So yeah, it's been really fun learning from each other. I have a software development background, but she's the one doing all the coding for the website. So just a lot of Venn diagram overlap and synergy and learning.
I love your emphasis on the visual side. My actual, and you said you enjoy seeing it. So I don't know why this is, but my biggest kind of fear I have in a project that I have a large control over is actually seeing the art. And I didn't know this about myself until it started happening, but I'd like get an email from the artist and I'd say, oh, and like I was afraid to click on it. And I didn't expect that. Like it's my big, I've realized of all the things that might frighten me, seeing the finished art is like the thing I have the most trepidation about and anxiety about. And I'm not really an anxiety person, but like, yeah, like I click on that thing and I'm like, oh, okay, it's great.
I guess I just filled my anxiety quota with everything else. So
well played. That's smart.
Yeah, but I spent a lot of time as a freelance editor not getting to see the art for products. And then the book would come out with art in it or maps in it. I'd be like, well, that doesn't match the text. Why did nobody notice that doesn't match the text? Or I would be in the middle of editing something and then they would send over a map and I'd be like, well, that doesn't match. Are we still allowed to change this map? Can you change the labels? Like, one of these things has got to change, or the GM and the players are going to have a bad experience. So even though it is a lot of work and time, I enjoy being able to have my fingers in those pies and really let art and design inform each other.
Yeah. So a magazine, how did it come to be a magazine? I can imagine you're the kind of person who had like a ton of ideas of things you could create. And magazines are a big part of D&D's history and RPG history. What led you to be a part of that?
The thing I love most about creating for tabletop games, this is no exaggeration, this is over much creative soul searching, I've determined the thing I love most about working on tabletop games is that I am creating things people then use in their games in completely transformative and unexpected ways. And it's really like no other genre there, the level of collaboration between quote unquote creator and quote unquote audience. And magazines, things like Horizons to me are the epitome of that, because I'm providing chunks of game content that have been really thoroughly designed, developed, play tested, edited to be able to be used as easily as possible in the form they're presented in. So it can just be, you get this stat block, you get this location, you can drop it right into your game tonight. This can be the next location your players go to. You can put that quest hook in. You can run a one shot with this. You can use these monsters and, kind of be reading their abilities at the table if you gotta, because we want to make it as, smooth of an experience as possible. But also at the same time, there is a complete awareness that a large percentage of people, maybe even the majority of the people reading and using this content, aren't going to use it as is. And that's cool and fine and perfect too. That you're going to take inspiration from this, you're going to chop it up, you're going to reflavor it, you're going to take this cloud city and say, well, I like this idea, but my players are in the underground, so I'm going to make it an underground city and change up the flavor. You're going to take this stat block and make it look different. You're going to give the abilities different names. You're going to use it in an entirely different game system. Any and all of that is intended. And I really love that. And I love hearing people's stories of the things they do with stuff I work on. I mean, it just comes down to that. And a magazine is the perfect vehicle for that. And it also lets me work with a lot of really cool different people because we have so many different chunks of content from different authors, and I can work with folks I have collaborated with a lot in the past and bring them back and say, pitch me some new stuff. Say, hey, that thing you pitched me a couple of years ago, I'd really like to make this happen now. And also try out new people and work with new creators and artists and editors and, constantly be introducing new collaborators into our community.
Arcadia, which you were an important part of, was very highly regarded in the TTRPG industry. What sort of lessons did you learn there that you are able to take forward? And maybe even what are some lessons that you learned that you wanted to change as you moved forward?
One of the biggest things I learned from Arcadia and from MCDM is playtesting. They absolutely set a standard in the tabletop industry as a whole for playtesting and what playtesting should look like and how it can be really powerful and valuable. So we're using a similar two-phase playtesting process. So everything that is in Horizons and everything, that we'll publish goes through development with the lead designer or managing editor, which in the case of Horizons is me, the editor-in-chief. And then it goes to a first set of alpha testers who are folks that we have essentially as permanent contractors who are reviewing all of the content for the systems they're familiar with. So Horizons is not only 5e, and we could talk about that more, but they go to some alpha testers who are folks on contract, who review these articles and use them in games and read them through and give us a bunch of notes and feedback on, and then it goes back to me and I read through all of that feedback, talk to the author, make some suggestions and requests. The author does a round of revisions, and then we do that all over again. Another playtest, more feedback, more revisions, tweaks, and then it goes to another editor. So in the case of this first issue of Horizons, that 5e editor is the incredible Sadie Lowry, and who is also an amazing designer in her own right. And for the Pathfinder article, that is Simone D. Soleil, who is a staff editor at Paizo working on Pathfinder there. And they bring in a completely fresh set of eyes, their own expertise, really polish everything up and make it sound and look beautiful, and the mechanics all be smooth. Any last things that need to be ironed out to go to layout. At the same time, we're also getting art made for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, one of the big things I learned from Arcadia and from the folks at MCDM, and in particular James Introcaso, who is the lead game designer there, was that playtest process and using both gathering and using that feedback from testers to continue to develop and improve.
Nice.
Well, and that tells me a lot, because I've worked with companies that play test, but they don't know what to do with the playtest feedback. And the value you put on it and how you're talking about it being involved in the process tells me you really make use of it. But that takes a ton of time.
It really does. It really does. It's a lot of time in spreadsheets. It's also a lot of I've worked on products that get a lot of playtest feedback, but the feedback itself isn't necessarily of the type that we really solicit and look for, especially from our alpha testers, where these are people who are not game designers usually, but who are extremely familiar with the rules, extremely familiar with the game mechanically and from a just player community level, and can give specific feedback on, okay, this is what happened, this is what the issue is. Not saying, well, I think I think X should be Y, right? I think this is bad and you should fix it by changing it to this because this is good. But saying, this was what the experience was and here's why it landed or didn't land. Yeah. And making it really clear and relatively easy for us as developers and designers to say, okay, I see that these things were issues. So here are some ways that I could suggest that we might fix these issues. And then I would bring those to the designer if we have a separate designer for that article that's not me, which is most of the articles in Horizons, and say, so the testers pointed this out. I'm thinking that we should do X, Y, Z. What do you think? Mm-hmm. And sometimes the designer will say, yeah, let's do X. That makes total sense. Here, I'm going to go implement it. Sometimes the designer will say, actually, I don't think this was as much of a problem as a preference. And then we discuss and we say, well, maybe it's the way it was presented. Let's mitigate this by, doing something different. Or they come up with an even better idea than any of the ones I've suggested. So yeah, like you said, it's a very involved, time-consuming process, but a intensely collaborative one, which is one of the really fun parts of it.
Your magazine is quarterly. Process-wise, are you taking up the entire quarter creating it? Like I could see it taking that long.
It's about a 6 to 7 month lead time. So we already have articles for issues 3 and 4 in the works. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so why the choice of going for mostly 5e type D&D articles, but also a taste of some other things? What was the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, so as a creator and as an RPG player, my roots are in 5e. As you guys both know, and so it's a system I've been playing for a long time. It's how I got started creating in the industry. I still really love creating for and playing it. And it's also a very popular system that a lot of people are still playing. The 2024 book so far seeing great success. And I think folks are going to keep playing it. And so I like creating for it. I didn't want to stop creating for it just because of Twitter drama. But also, there are a lot of other cool RPGs out there, and I felt, if you'll pardon the pun, that this could be a great opportunity for me to expand my horizons as a creator.
I see what you did
there. The collaborative, transformative nature of the content that I mentioned before, where people can use it in whatever way they like, I felt makes it very natural to say, well, yeah, we're going to present some articles that have 5e in mind. Maybe they have a lot of 5e mechanics. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're more world building focused. It's going to be a variety, right? But we're going to present some articles that are designed with 5e in mind. But then let's present another article highlighting another featured system so we can have some variety and we can show off different kinds of mechanics and different genres. And it's just an extension of the variety of types of content that are in the 5e articles, right? It's just another dimension to that is, well, let's also do different systems. And one of the things that I found from my experience with Arcadia was that a lot of people just read Arcadia for the inspiration. Mm-hmm. They weren't, using the content wholesale, maybe even at all. Maybe they weren't even actively running a game, but they liked reading it for the inspiration. And maybe they weren't running 5e games, even though Arcadia was very much a 5e magazine. And so it's like, well, if people are using this for inspiration in their own stuff anyway, then let's expand that. Let's provide stuff that's for inspiration, regardless of what system you play, and say, hey, that's cool. Yeah. You can read this Pathfinder article and try out Pathfinder 2nd edition, or you can just use that stuff in your D&D game. You can try out Candela Obscura. Or maybe you just see these cool archetypes that we're going to present in issue 2 for Candela Obscura player characters, and you say, hey, I like this investigative horror vibe. Let's make these some NPCs in my D&D game. I personally, as a creator, like, have no agenda there. I just want to make cool stuff that people can use in cool ways. And this was a natural extension of the variety nature of the magazine.
Yeah, that certainly resonates with me. Like, I had a number of years in graduate school and just after it where I was not running D&D, but I was living off of my Dragon magazine subscription to feel like I was still in touch with it. Between that and old list server forums, I'm very young, you just can't tell. But it was, like that just kept me feeling like I was still a gamer until I could again be a gamer. Which is,
Yeah. And as I was reading issue 1, I thought, well, I'll skim the op-ed, The Desk of Many Thoughts, and then see what the articles are about. And as I started reading that, I started getting into it. Then I saw footnotes. And being an academic at heart, I'm like, there are cool footnotes. Oh, this is awesome. So I read the whole thing through like twice, had to look up a few words, which is different for me. And I'm like, I love this. I love this already. And I'm just on the very first preface, if you will, of the first issue.
Well, that's a huge compliment coming from you, a academic and writer. So that means a lot to me. I had a lot of fun writing that.
It was nerdy in a good way. I was impressed by it too. I was like, oh, we're going here.
Yeah.
That's what it's for, is that so the Desk of Many Thoughts is our 5th article, if you will, our column, which is for writing that is not game content, a nerdy op-ed, prose essay. There's fewer and fewer game-focused journalism outlets in this industry. And there are a lot of articles on outlets and blogs that are like, these people published this product and here's what's in it, and I like it or don't like it. And I really wanted a place for more prose writing about games and to do with games and to do with nerdy stuff related in some way to fantasy, tabletop, role-playing, gaming, dice, what have you, that wasn't a press release and wasn't a purely academic paper. Because the stuff happening in the academic side is, and Shawn, you and I have talked about this a little, is super cool. And some of it is very focused on actual play, which is also super cool. But I also feel like, oh yeah, I want to comment on this and I want to be part of this research. And then it's like, well, actually, I'm kind of at the periphery of the actual play world. They're not researching exactly what I'm creating. Anyway, that's a tangent. But yeah, the Desk of Many Thoughts is our op-ed article, but in this first issue, it comes from me and my co-founder, Clara Daly. And we do a very nerdy deep dive into liminal spaces and Y horizons and indulge in many footnotes.
Beautiful, beautiful footnotes. So before we get to the rest of the articles, issue 1's out. If folks haven't gotten it or don't know where to get it, could you let them know where they can go or how they can get it?
You can go to wildmagepress.com to subscribe or purchase a single issue. You can also subscribe on Patreon, patreon.com/wildmagepress. There are free preview PDFs both on our website, wildmagepress.com, and on DriveThruRPG. That is Horizons issue 1 free preview, and that contains the beautiful cover, the first 4 pages of each article, and a stat block for the protostellar wormling star dragon, which is very cool. And Teos, you made that your desktop picture, is that right? The art of these protostellar wormlings?
I've made it the backdrop behind our faces. So folks who are watching this on the YouTubes, you get the extra treat of seeing that art there, but everybody should go see the actual art that is on your website.
And that art is by Allie Briggs.
Nice. Great artist. Yeah.
Ah.
So the articles.
Actually, one last thing. Do you have a preference, with monetization cuts, whatever? Is it better to go to your website or to go to Patreon? Do you prefer one over the other?
We prefer whatever is easiest for you, the listener, the audience, the subscriber. Whatever is easiest for you is going to be best for us. We get a little more through the website.
Mm-hmm.
We also, through the website, offer an annual subscription that's 10% off. So you can save a little that way. And the subscription subscribers also get a bunch of bonus content between issues. So this is a quarterly magazine. The first issue just came out now in early October. The second issue will be coming out towards the beginning of January. And between now and then, we have a big slate of bonus content of behind the scenes art process post, tokens, bonus magic items, some collabs with other creators, maybe some handouts related to what's in the issue, a whole bunch of fun stuff that's just subscribers are going to continue getting regular bonus content between issues.
Sweet. All right. Tell us about issue 1.
Yeah, so issue 1, we've touched on the Desk of Many Thoughts, and then the articles that you can use in your games begin with Next Stop Adventure, which is fantasy transportation for your fantasy setting. That's by Aaron Roberts, who is an amazing designer and also a professor at University of Austin, Texas. University of Texas, Austin?
I think that's
one
right.
of those university orders. Anyway, she presents 2 new types of fantasy conveyances: the rune-powered scrawlers for traveling across countryside, town, dungeon, to locales both known and unknown. And one of the folks in our community messaged me and was like, wow, I was not expecting to start my day reading about fantasy Ubers. This is so cool. And I was like, okay, but first of all, this is slander. Uber is a for-profit company. These scrawlers are provided by a group of ex-adventurers who create them, and they are extremely affordable. Also, sometimes you can get a ride for free if you offer some services to the operator, or some protection from experienced adventurers might be needed. But yeah, there are a bunch of different types of scrawlers, including the stone steed horses and the phantom scrawlers that have no operator, and so you have to have your token to get them to stop, or you can, if you want to board illegally, try to jump on them as they're moving. And player characters can also learn the runes that power these scrawlers. There's a motion rune that keeps them moving forward. There's a repelling rune that can create a blast to drive away would-be robbers or predators. There is a protection rune for inclement weather to keep the drizzle off. And there's just a bunch of cool lore and world building tied into all of it. And then, mechanics where player characters can learn these runes and inscribe them on their own gear and equipment.
Awesome. I like that part a lot. That idea of then handing it over to the players, so it's not just an NPC side thing. That's really cool.
Yeah. And then on the other side, there's urban transportation. The lore riders are these big these big metal capsules that travel above crowded city streets on ethereal legs that phase in and out of existence. And the lore riders transport city commuters and tourists alike for the price of a good and 100% honest story. And depending on the magnitude and quality of your story, your ticket might last anywhere from a day to a year. But it is acquired by going to one of these ethereal posts marking the color-coded lore writer stops and accessing the ticket exchange demiplane and telling your story.
Yeah, that article and the next article just screamed of Eberron type, an Eberron type feel for me. And it was just like, this needs to be used in one of those sort of science fantasy sorts of games so much.
Well, and the Star Dragons too are to be very
that's
Eberron.
true.
And actually, so the third article, maybe we'll skip around a bit. The third article, Draco Ex Astris, is about these Star Dragons, and the author of that, Imogen Gingell, is not only a longtime Eberron author. She and Keith Baker are co-authors on the latest Exploring Eberron release, but she is a real-life space plasma physicist, astronomy researcher. And she pitched this article about star dragons based on the astronomy of the life cycle of a star.
That's awesome. That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they go from the CR7 protostellar wormlings to the adult sequence star dragons who take their place in a variety of organizations devoted to the upholding their ideals or principles in the cosmos, to the venerable giant star worms, which will eventually explode in a supernova.
So good.
Awesome.
And then do we want to talk about Willia Beale's article about the clouds? This was amazing as well.
This is neat.
Tell me, I want to hear what you think, Shawn.
I love when I read about, I forgot what it was called. I think the cloud stuff, he calls it. The
cloud stuff.
Where you can actually form firmament out of the clouds, and then you can use that. Yeah, all of these, they all work together so well too.
Yeah.
They were all about travel, and they were all about space, and they were all about the thing that you talked about in the Desk of Many Thoughts, which is that liminal space, the space between what you're used to playing in a D&D game and maybe what you could be playing in a D&D game. I mean, we could go on about liminal space forever and ever. But, all of that I thought you could use all of these articles together, right? You're on the clouds. Maybe you're adventuring in them, or maybe you are building something on your own, but now you've got the transportation through the clouds, and now you've got the star dragons that are coming and going, and it all worked together so well.
The art of the dwarves is really great with the like star-like flesh that they have in that art is really something else.
That's the Cerulean dwarf painter, and that art is by Veronica O'Neill, who is fantastic. And she gave us a bunch of different sketches of different Cerulean dwarf artisans in this sky city of Kukulan. And we really loved this one of the painter because they're sitting on a little stool made of cloud stuff. Their easel is made of cloud stuff, which is this solid cloud that has been shaped and worked into implements, the stool, the easel, probably the paintbrush, but also the architecture of this city, the ground of it, everything here being built and shaped from this cloud stuff. And the Cerulean dwarfs are one of the denizens of the town of Kukulan.
I love everything that Willie designs, but he also is particularly good at names, and all of the names of all these NPCs are just excellent.
There are puns that run so deep. I didn't notice them until like version 7. And it was like, oh, Clean Air, the Rock, Open Air Painting, Plein Air. Anyway, it's so atmospheric.
Yeah. Stratus and Mylar and Hyli and just all kinds of great. But they're also really fun. Like, what does he have? Denim is one of the characters. Denim Delft. Like, that's just a great name.
Yeah. Willie's a fantastic designer and so fun to collaborate with him. And I think it was like pretty late in the process when the article was in edit, and we were going over some stuff with the editor, and we were like, well, there's a rumor board mentioned here. Maybe we should put in a couple rumors. And I was like, Willie, hey, could you bring up a couple rumors that are on this rumor board to fill this out? And he comes up with some cool stuff. And it's very hard working with Willie for both of us to restrain ourselves and not have a lot of scope creep. But yeah, that article is a lot of fun. There is also the Terrible Crane, who is just the worst and will follow you around everywhere and annoy you, but also probably be extremely important to your quest. And I don't know how to express how much I love this terrible, horrible, wonderful bird.
And then we get to the final article, which is Atraxis the Crystalline. This is the Pathfinder 2E flavored article. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I reached out to authors to pitch these articles, and I reached out to Rue Dickey, who is on the marketing team at Paizo, but also a freelance designer for Pathfinder, for D&D, for a bunch of different game systems. And they pitched this article about a cool elemental mage. And that turned into Atraxis, who is very much a plain-touched orc living in this settlement where there's a rift, where the material world meets the plane of Earth, and there's a lot of Earth elemental energy there. There is the Institute of Higher Learning, the Hall of Light and Stone, where a lot of planar and arcane study happens. And Atraxis is this young prodigy mage who goes to do their research at the Hall of Light and Stone, and is, blazing ahead of their peers with their affinity for speaking with earth elementals, for transforming the stone and rock around them. And then they go to present their fantasy PhD thesis, and they're showing how they use the resonance of these crystals to transform them into other things. And the staid traditionalists of the administration are horrified and appalled by this. And Atraxis basically runs away into the mountain caves and goes into self-imposed exile. And they live with the elementals for a while. And then they come back thinking that, expecting that there's going to be like a bit of a hullabaloo about them reappearing, that people might have been looking for them, that the university is going to be surprised they're back. And instead they find that pretty much everyone except their moms just kind of forgot about them and moved on with their life. And yeah, so poor Atraxis is a boy with a pretty traumatic backstory, and they've got their stuff, and we wanted them to be an NPC where they can be a really powerful enemy. They are their home abode or lair is this pellucid palace, this crystalline place attuned to their thoughts and emotions. So combat with them there has a hazard that, per Pathfinder mechanics, acts on its own initiative and takes its own turns and has its whole routine and actions and responses. And so it's a very dynamic, challenging combat that would happen there. But also they can be an ally. They have a lot of abilities that would make them a very useful ally. The players might need to seek them out as an ally. Maybe they have a quest of their own that prompts them to travel with the party for a while. Like, we know RPG parties love adopting some NPCs with a traumatic backstory. Like, especially when they are stylish mages. with a extremely striking aesthetic. So, yeah, and then Atraxis also has a magic item, the Fork of Earthly Tuning, and a new ritual. And those are things that player characters can engage with and learn or use or acquire in their own ways.
Yeah. This is what happens to an NPC when their parents change their room when they go off to college. It's just make a villain. It's a cautionary tale. You're helping people, Hannah. You're letting them know.
Letting them know this is what happens if you have too much stage traditionalism at your academic institutions and people are mean to the would-be graduates during their dissertations. Like,
yeah. We've all been there.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So issue 1 is jam-packed. You must have some pretty interesting plans for the future as well, because you said we're working like 2-3 issues in advance.
Yeah. So we have a lot of things lined up for the next few issues. We have some very cool things coming up in issue 2 for our featured system is Candela Obscura. Carlos Cisco, who has done a lot of 5e design and also wrote on Candela Obscura itself, this investigative horror TTRPG from Darrington Press, is writing new archetypes. So these are 3 new player character archetypes that all tie into the world tie into kind of the everyday life of this, 1910s alternate reality. And the D&D articles include a paired set of articles from designers Sadie Lowry and Amber Litke, who've written a lot for MCDM Productions or on the record-breaking Cosmere RPG. Sadie's done a lot of work with Wizards of the Coast and Critical Role. They're both editors on Daggerheart. Anyway, I could go off about all the contributors' credits for a long time, but they are fantastic and some of my favorite folks to collaborate with. And they are writing 2 articles that are interwoven and can be used together or separately, but there is a pair of really cool there's the villainous couple. Let's see, they're certainly could be antagonists, but they could also be patrons to the party. They could also be allies. Might be a little bit of a strong. Well, they could be allies. They could be allies in that they might give you things if you work for them. So there are kind of the parallel quest lines presented there with them. And they wield forbidden magics that are presented in Amber's article, which I won't spoil the titles of these yet, but they wield forbidden magics that are present in Amber's article, which is a set of 3 kinds of new spells that all have their unique, cool little mechanics and complications. And the testers have been having a lot of fun with those. And then longtime 5e designer Brandis Stoddard, who I've been collaborating with on stuff for Worlds Beyond Number and having an amazing time working with him over there, is presenting a Paladin quest line where this is a storyline that the GM can weave into an ongoing campaign with a Paladin player where they acquire a sword that was once a Holy Avenger sword and go on quest to uncover a mystery of what happened to it and restore it to its former glory.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it really is.
Fantastic. Love it.
Wow.
Yeah, every DM wants
really
that
fun.
if you have a paladin in the party. That's great.
Yeah. It's really fun, and if we hit the mark with it, we'd love to do it for other kinds of. It's very suited to paladin, but can have these for any class, any character, and certainly there's a lot in there that can be woven into other parts of a campaign and things that are very much, involving the entire party, right? We're very explicit, like, this is a storyline for the paladin player character. They are not meant to be the only protagonist and have the other player characters as supporting be cast. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Teos, do you have any more questions before we let poor Hannah go, who we've kept here for a little longer than we
can chat with you for hours, I'm sure.
It's been a pleasure. It's great to hear about your company, the excitement of this, the passion you're bringing to it. Just fantastic. Issue 1 looks amazing. Highly recommend folks go out and pick it up and sign up for all the future issues as well. We look forward to seeing it, Hannah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Look forward to seeing folks in our Discord and continuing all of the nerdy chatter.
And we will continue to cover it in our news as you bring out more and more issues.
Yeah.
We will continue to send previews and copies.
Folks who want to follow you and follow your compatriot Clara, where can they best go to kind of see what the two of you are up to?
Yeah, you can follow Wildmage Press on, I would say all the socials. There are a lot of them. On many of the main socials, you can follow Wildmage Press on Twitter, on Blue Sky, on Instagram, and on TikTok, actually. I don't run that one, but we do have a TikTok. I feel so modern. And you can follow me at Wild Rosemage on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram. Clara is at Eldritch Blep. And it's pretty easy to find all of that percolating out from our website, wildmagepress.com.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for sharing all of that with us, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you both for having me.
And it was great to hear from Hannah, and it sounds like everything she's working on will be amazing, and I can't wait to hear and see everything come to fruition there. So with that, I want to give a thanks to all of our supporters and all of our listeners. Thank you for listening, and if you are a patron, thank you so much. Thank you to our Master of Dungeon supporters. A special shout out to our Master of Realm supporters goes into our show notes, and our Masters of the Multiverse, well, you know what happens. Keith Ammon of The Monsters Know What They're Doing, Lou Anders of Lazy Wolf Studios, Craig Bailey, Dave Bastianson, Steve Bissonette, Merrick Blackman, Calvin Bridges-Avalos, Evil John, Will Doyle, Andy Edmonds at nerdronomicon.com, James Fisher, Scott Fitzgerald Gray at Insane Angel Studios, Ben Heisler and Paige Lightman, Shawn Hurst, Mark and Mary's Gaming Compound, The Mighty Jerd, Brian King, Jim Klingler, a.k.a. DM Prime Mover, Chad Lynch, Paul Mata, The Mathemagician, Eric Mengi, Anna B. Meyer of Fantasy Cartography, Trey McLemore, John Mickey, Sean Molly, Falcon Neal, Tom Nelson, creator of the Deck of Player Safety, Mighty Zeus, Phil Wirt from the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo, Frog Prince at Tentacles Squelching Wetly, Post-Fiction RPG Audio, Robert Pasley, Vladimir Prunner from Croatia, Pugnus, Azamandius Rex, Runner Rick, Chance Russo at Drago Russo, Andy Shockney, Krishna Samosa, Josh and the Wanaka of the Tabletop Journeys podcast. I got there. Talos the Stormlord, Jeremy Talaman from the D&D and TV podcast, Trace, Joe Tyler, Marcelo de Velasquez, The Valiant DM, James Walton, Graham Ward, Jason Ward from Accidental Cyclops Games, Javier Waziak, Chris Webster, Zach Types, and Zawalt Winfrey. We have to get Walt there at the end. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for being a patron. If you would like to throw your hat into the patron ring, you can do so by going to patreon.com/masteringdnd. Every little bit helps us keep it going. If you get a chance, you should also give us a review. Go to Apple Podcast, find Mastering Dungeons, and give us a review. Or wherever you listen to this podcast, or on YouTube, give us a review, subscribe, like, do the things that help people see what it is that we do. Teos, what are you up to, and where are you in the social media world?
I have been consumed by work, now consumed by GameholeCon, but you can find everything I've done in the past at alphastream.org. That's how much Gamehole's in my brain.
Gamehole is in my brain too, but you can still find me all the places at Shawn Merwin, or follow the podcast on the socials at Mastering D&D. And if you're going to be at GameholeCon, we will see you there. And what are we going to do now?
We're going to go do even more prep for GameholeCon.
Gamehole.
Gamehole.
Gamehole.